Test mic testing. Okay, can everybody hear me? I hope so. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I'm like beyond floored right now. Just such a great turnout. It's just to see the faces of friends and family is really moving to me because I was nervous getting here and I just didn't know if anybody would show up. So here you are. So thank you. I love you all for being here. So basically, this book, just some of you might not be familiar with the project. The way that it went down is this. And Mark is sitting at just the right spot. That's not even planned. It's sitting right there. But what happened was I blogged. I have a blog. I think I have 4 followers or something. Mark's one of them. And last March, I was kind of daydreaming on my blog. And the blog is a literary blog, so I talk writing, fiction, kind of all the things that writers deal with in their writing with their craft and inspiration and publication and all those types of issues. And I read a lot of flash fiction, mostly online, and I had been thinking a lot about gender in fiction, and in particular I've been thinking about the author's gender, because I'm always so blown away by both my favorite authors that I'm very familiar with because I've read tons of their stuff and I follow them, and people that I'm constantly discovering because there's always new, emerging writers coming up, really young people who are fresh and they're putting a bunch of stuff out there. And I'm always thinking about how, in particular, female authors can just get a male character right, and similarly, how male authors can just get a female character right. And I think, when we read fiction, I think everybody that loves fiction, it's all about the characters. I mean, let's face it, it's, there's a story, but if we don't somehow feel, we either fall in love with a character or we despise a character, it has to resonate, the characters have to resonate. That's what makes fiction good, that's what makes it worth it. And so it's always sort of that wonder that, oh my goodness, how did this male author put that female character down, whether it's the narrator or it's just a secondary character. So that was sort of what I was thinking about. So I said on my blog, in a very sort of, off-the-cuff kind of way, wouldn't it be a really cool thing if for, say, 1 year, we had to read flash fiction, which for anybody who doesn't know what that is, we'll just keep it simple and say it's very short fiction, without knowing who wrote it. So we're going to approach the stories that we read differently. We're not going to know if it's written by a man or a woman. And then at the end of that year, we found out, and wouldn't it be a curious thing, would we be right? Would we be able to say, yeah, I knew a woman wrote that, or I knew a man wrote that? Or would we be completely wrong? And Mark said, you should put together an anthology like that. And he just said, get it together, ask all your favorite writers to send you stories, and well, initially we didn't know that PS Books was going to do it, but he said, you should make an anthology where you publish the author's bios at the end, but, as you're reading the stories, you don't know who wrote what. And, sometimes something just clicks for you, and the second that I read that comment on my blog, I knew I had to do it. And I had never been on the editorial side of things before. I've only been seriously writing for the last few years, so, but I knew I had to pursue it. So I proposed this idea to a couple publishers, and in small publishing, in this world of independent presses, as most of you know, the budgets are always tight. So many people really love the idea, but they just didn't simply have the budget to work with it. And Mark happens to be the acquisitions editor for PS Books, and then he said, Nicole, I think we could do it. So thank you, and a round of applause to Mark, because really this is I should add that Mark and Kerry are grad school friends of mine, so that's how we knew each other, and that's why he's one of my 3 followers. So that's the story. This is kind of a cool story. And with that said, here we are, not quite a year later, 11 months later, we have a beautiful book. Thank you to PS Books for believing in this project. I love PS Books. I've other titles. They make a beautiful product. They're just a wonderful organization. And please, before you leave, the literary magazine, Philadelphia Stories, is just top-notch. There's never, as Carl is showing you, there's never an issue that does not blow me away. Fiction, poetry, art, and the cool thing is it's all artists from the Delaware Valley who are contributing work to that magazine. So it's wonderful. And this is, PS Books is the sister to that magazine. So I just wanted to say a word about that. So, and thank you to Christine for hosting this amazing event. So with all the thank yous out of the way, we'll start our readings. I'm going to read a piece. Now, I should also add, we have 8 readings today, and the contributors that are here that are reading are not reading their own pieces, because in the spirit of the project, that would be silly if we told you, well, this is what I wrote. We're not going to tell you until February 1st, 2013 on my blog. So on your way out, please grab an excuse like the 2nd grade cutting, because it's just not my thing. But last night I just decided there had to be a favor today for you to leave with. So I bought Hershey bars, and I made, as Christine's showing, and I made bookmarks, and I put, so you would remember when you left what my website is. So maybe I'll have 7 followers by tomorrow. And please check back in February 1st to find out who wrote what. So the contributors are reading pieces, some of them anyway. I'm so excited to meet some of them for the first time after working with them online for almost a year. And they're not reading their own pieces, or maybe they are. I'm not going to tell you. So I am going to read a piece called, it's called Found Objects. He lifted her modest veil and made that eternal but oft-broken promise. Then he bought their first home. When they stood in front of the old Cooper Colonial, sagging on its foundation, all she saw was the peeling picket fence she had always wanted, and what the house could become. He saw her face shine, and never imagined he'd stand in court in 10 years' time before a judge explaining why the marriage could not be repaired. A house can be, however, and they threw their young selves into the renovation with savage enthusiasm. Horsehair plaster coated their hair and furniture for years. Pipes and wiring remained exposed like clogged arteries and enlarged veins needing medical attention. The house spit up gifts, too, constantly. In the cold, the old bones contracted and cracks appeared out of nowhere, spidering up the drop ceilings in the bedrooms and along the corners where the walls met. In the heat, the frame swelled, the floorboards stopped creaking, and the cabinets and doors closed again. In between, it gave them hidden objects. An old buffalo nickel rolled from a loose metal baseboard one day when his wife was vacuuming. Square head nails seemed to pop up from everywhere. Rusty with stories and the detritus of others' lives, they emerged in the strangest of places, from under sinks, along wainscoting cracks, and from light fixtures. Marbles seemed to be rolled out to them by ghostly players, clay, cat's eye, clear, and became a hazard for the babies when they came along. The house continued to expand and contract, and the objects kept arriving. Toy army soldiers, tiny china doll heads, pencils, chalk, shirt buttons, a ticket to a Ferris wheel ride. They accepted the gifts and put them into a tall mason jar, which he kept on his desk. And later, when he was alone, nowhere near that old house of buried treasure, he would pick up the glass jar, looking at all that remained, shake it, hear its resonance and assurance, place it back down gently, wondering what, from their own previous life, would be exposed in the coming season.